I would be shocked if the ANC were to get 20% next year in the local government elections. I mean, the ANC, the way they have destroyed our country is shocking. We must prepare ourselves for political chaos. Ramaphosa is not in the business of leading South Africa. He is in the business of protecting criminals from the ANC. Full stop. The ANC is a criminal enterprise.
So, fresh from a triumph, our next guest, King Mashele, who's been promoted from Prince Mashele, went on Sizwe Mpofu Walsh's show and got 1 million views. Team, have we got work on our hands to match or better that 1 million views of Prince Mashele's interview with Sizwe? But in order to do it, you have to have the man sitting next to you, and I'm very excited to have back here in the State of the Nation studio, Prince Mashele. Prince, welcome back.
Thanks, Mike. It's not me. Sizwe is very famous.
He's very famous. Yeah.
You are also very famous.
I'm very famous, but my father wasn't so famous. So good night.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful interview. And I have to say to anybody that if you're one of the few people that haven't watched it, please go and watch it, and you'll see why it was so popular. So, Prince, let's have a look at South Africa as it's sitting at the moment. You had some really interesting things to say on Sizwe's show, and one doesn't know where to start, but we'll start with the things that are in the top of mind at the moment. And we've spoken heavily about the national dialogue, and you on that show said people should be protesting in the streets about the national dialogue, but it kicked off anyway, and it was hardly the best start ever to a national dialogue, was it?
Yeah, it was not a national dialogue. I mean, there was they call it a national convention.
Yes.
I call it the ANC's national circus. That's how I saw it. I've not heard anyone serious in South Africa who praised it and said that after those 2 days at UNISA, there is hope in South Africa. I mean, I watched it and I found it very sad. I mean, Ramaphosa, the president of the country, stands before us and he says, we must ask ourselves, why do some people live in absolute poverty while others live in opulence? In his head, that is what we must talk about. And think of it this way, Mike. Ramaphosa is the second richest black person in South Africa. The richest black person is his brother-in-law, Motsepe. Now, he is wealthy, this chap. He stands before the nation. He says, we must ask, why is he rich? And why are the rest poor? Why can't he tell us? Why? It's as simple as that. He knows why is he rich. Mm-hmm. He is actually ridiculing the nation. He also says, we must ask ourselves, why do hospitals in South Africa run out of medicine? My goodness, he forgot that medicine in South Africa is provided for by the Department of Health, which is run by a minister he appointed. But he says we must ask ourselves. So you have this chap who has no clue what he's doing, and he occupies the office of the president. It was a national circus. Here is a problem, Mike. The problem is this. The ANC guys who run the state, and of course Cyril Ramaphosa is president, they have totally lost credibility in South Africa. Wherever they go, South Africans look at them as our national disaster. They are our national disaster. They're actually an embarrassment. South Africans look at them as thieves who are stealing, and of course they are stealing. So even the president himself knows that he has lost credibility since Phala Phala. And the recent thing is Mchunu, by the way, the cover-up. South Africans no longer take them serious. So when they go to public platforms, they even forget the offices they occupy. They speak as if they are commentators, as if there is some president somewhere who's going to come and provide leadership. They ask these embarrassing questions. So as South Africans, we are in trouble. We have no leadership. We are on autopilot.
Yeah, they kind of speak as if they've just inherited the country from a really bad government. but yet they've been the government the whole
It's 30 years on.
Huh.
If you add another 30 years, if they were to give them another 30 years, it would be 60 years. In fact, it's 31 years to be precise. They are still asking themselves questions. They are totally confused. They have no idea where the country is going. They are at sea. We are in trouble, and I think we need to have a real national dialogue, not the circus at UNISA, but a real one, and say, guys, one, how do we protect South Africa from the ANC? That must be the biggest question, because the ANC is South Africa's national problem. We must face this the question and say, how do we protect ourselves from the ANC, our country, number one? And who among us can step into the vacuum and lead us? Because Ramaphosa and the ANC, as I said, they have totally lost credibility. They have even forgotten that they are supposed to lead society. So we must face our crisis. If we don't face it, we don't acknowledge it, we mince our words, our country will continue to slide into disaster.
Now, one could look at the national dialogue and all those points that you so validly made. Would you say there's any political cost to forging ahead with this bad idea, or do you think they've lost so much credibility it doesn't matter?
No, there is a cost. I mean, South Africans have been watching this, and South Africans have been thinking that this is a waste of money, and it's correct. These fat cats, they congregated at UNISA, they ate. Who bought that food that they ate? It's our taxes. So we paid these fat cats to spend 2 days in UNISA spending our money. South Africans are angry because South Africans know their problems, by the way. They don't want another talk shop. They want action. And the ANC is very clear so far that it cannot implement anything. So South Africans are angry. And I see the idea on the part of the ANC, why they decided to go ahead with this national dialogue when it was very clear that South Africans didn't want it. It is because they are aware that they have lost credibility. So they thought they were going to use this gathering to reclaim some semblance of credibility and say, we have provided a platform for South Africans to talk. So I think that come next local government elections, the ANC is going to be punished very seriously. I would be shocked if the ANC were to get 20% next year in the local government election. So South Africans are very angry, and they have a right to be angry. These people, these thieves of the ANC have abused us. The pain that we have taken as a nation, it's just unbearable. We have now reached a breaking point as a society.
Yeah, and it's showing in every metric and, certainly every economic metric, but certainly the country is crying out for it. Before we go into the next local government election and looking at prospects, what comes out of this failure of the ANC, let's talk about something you mentioned briefly over there, and that's the cover-up following the expose by Klankla Nkwenazi, and then the establishment of the Matlanga Commission as a way of dealing with this criminality. What did you make of the decision to call for a commission of inquiry? And then there was a parliamentary ad hoc commission, and it seems like the ANC are trying to sabotage both.
Yeah, it's simple, and you have nailed it, a cover-up. So Mchunu and Ramaphosa are buddies in crime. Ramaphosa became president of the ANC partly because Mchunu was his campaigner-in-chief in KwaZulu-Natal, handling dirty money for Cyril Ramaphosa. So when your friend has been caught out, what do? You do your best to assist your friend, to cover up. That's why he couldn't fire him. Why? Because he set up a commission of inquiry, and he knows that this guy will have to shuttle between his house, his mansion, and the commission of inquiry. He needs to be driven. So he needs fuel, and he needs a driver. So if he had fired him, the fellow, for the first time probably in his life, would have to drive his own small car. So he said, look, don't worry, I will suspend you so that you have a driver who's going to take you there, number one. You don't buy fuel. You have a house to live in. So this whole thing is to accommodate Mchunu nothing else. It's not to solve anything. I did say before, Ramaphosa is the client number one of our intelligence services. He knows everything, even more than what Mchunu said. So there is nothing for Ramaphosa to find out. This whole thing is a cover-up using our money. That's the summary of the story. So our president is now a liability. It's a national liability. He is now using our money to protect his friends and to insult us.
Now we must then look at the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee, which is now, Parliament seemed to be stunned into action and called for an ad hoc committee, but the ANC managed to strangle that by getting their guys in charge and dominating that particular committee by the looks of things. And then Soviet Lekhanyane, who heads it up, has done his best to make sure that commission does nothing at all. What do you make of that, and what do you make of the fact that parties like the DA have had nothing to say about it?
Yeah, look, here is what the ANC has done over the past 31 years. Because it has been dominant in Parliament, it has reduced Parliament into a rubber stamp. Honestly, there is no parliamentary inquiry that has consequences. You actually didn't even need that parliamentary inquiry. All you needed to do, by the way, is to fire Mchunu and to charge him and to arrest him. And then the judges would deal with him. That's all you need. Like you have arrested Ket Matlala. So you should have arrested Mchunu as Ket Matlala's friend, so that he faces the judges. He wears an orange uniform. So the parliamentary process, nothing will come out of it. It's another waste of money. The fat cats will congregate in those meeting rooms, have a nice food, and at the end of the day, nothing will come out of it. Just, if you think I am lying, show me one parliamentary inquiry that produced results. Who was ever arrested because there was a parliamentary inquiry? I cannot imagine that this one will be the first. The ANC's approach to Parliament is that we use it as a rubber stamp. So they deployed Lekhanyane and they told him, Chief, your role is to make sure this thing does not lead anywhere. Full stop. Here is the thing. The ANC has a caucus in Parliament. Before there is a parliamentary inquiry, they figure out what are the possible outcomes. And their main focus is to protect their comrades. Because remember, there is no one in the ANC who's clean. So they are protecting each other. It's a buddy thing. So the whole thing is, Lekhanyane, protect our comrades. So I don't expect anything to come out of the parliamentary inquiry. I think it's a total waste of time, total waste of money, and a total waste of hot air. I don't worry about hot air. It's their hot air anyway. But I worry about our money.
Yeah. But do you think there's going to be, because already we've had news emerging of 10 missed phone calls that Becky Cele made to Ket Matlala, which is clearly part of the whole route that Mkhonazi was going down. You've got a senior politician phoning a crook to say they're coming to arrest you.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The whole ANC is a criminal enterprise. You see, South Africans must get this. The ANC is a criminal enterprise. And because they've been controlling our state, they have also criminalized our state. That's the gist of it. And these ministers of the ANC, by the way, have gotten used to being bribed by these criminals. Why? Because the ANC fellows live like billionaires. They are not humble chaps. They can't live in a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom house. They want to live in mansions. I mean, look at the pictures of the houses of Paul Mashele. Paul Mashele, you would think this chap is running a multi-billion company producing some useful stuff. What does this guy produce? I mean, for him to live in those mansions, he will tell you, these are my son-in-law's houses. That's absolute nonsense. We know that these are his houses. The son-in-law is being used in the process. The ANC fellows have become so corrupt that there is no longer a difference between an ANC minister and a hardcore criminal. The criminal world and the ANC cadres have now converged. They are now the same thing. So I was not surprised when I heard about these phone calls between Ket Matlala and Bheki Cele. It's because Bheki Cele, who is Bheki Cele, is an ANC cadre. Corrupt, just like any other corrupt ANC cadre. We know who is the criminal in chief? It's Cyril Ramaphosa. Where is the evidence? Pala, dollars in his sofa. I mean, how criminal can it be? So yes, the ANC criminal enterprise working with the criminal networks, underground criminal networks. We as a society were in trouble.
Yeah. And society knows it. And what is the outcome? You mentioned the polls. You mentioned your own prediction that the ANC are going to really struggle in the next local government election.
The outcomes are, and this is what is happening. The ANC is being processed out of power. That's what we are going through. Sitting at 40% at the national level in the previous elections. And here is the thing about it. Whatever the ANC gets in a national election, it gets lower in the next local government elections. Take any and every election, that has been the trend. So the ANC at a local level does not outperform the ANC at a national level. So we know already that the ANC next year will get less than 40%. The question is, how low can it get? My prediction is it will get below 20% because the ANC has totally lost credibility. So the consequences are the ANC will be kicked out of power. We are lucky because the ANC will be kicked out of power democratically without a single shot being fired. Liberation movements don't relinquish power without resistance, but the ANC will relinquish power without resistance. You know why? Because they don't control our security forces. The ANC have no control over our security forces. If they were to issue an instruction to say the security forces must resist, the heads of the ANC cadres would be blown up. They have no, unlike ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF in Zimbabwe controls the security forces, the army. They can issue a command and control instruction and the army will implement. In South Africa, there is no such a thing. We are lucky because our security forces are so fragmented. There is not one. They call Cyril Ramaphosa our commander-in-chief. I can tell you, a fellow commands a fraction of our security forces, doesn't command the whole thing. That's why we are lucky. But here is the danger. When a liberation movement is being kicked out of power, it does two things, either of two things. One, it resists, and I said the ANC won't resist, or it loots. The ANC, they are busy looting as we speak, as if there is no tomorrow. But there is a good thing about their looting. They are looting individually. They are not looting collectively. This makes it easy to arrest them when there's a new government, because that new government is going to go after them individually. So there will be no collective defense. So let them loot. But I'm telling you, a time is coming when each one of them is going to be arrested. And when that happens, they will be running helter-skelter individually. And I'm telling you, when that government comes, and I don't know when, this is what you do. You say you have a timeline. Any and everyone who was a minister during the Zuma era all the way to Ramaphosa, minister, deputy minister, DG, deputy DG, and chief directors, especially those who are in procurement divisions, all of them, you investigate them, you trace the money. Let me tell those who are still alive, those who would be dead at that point will be lucky because they'll be dead. But those who are still alive, we must follow them. We must make an example of them. We must collect all of them and jail them. And society must see them rot in jail.
Now, you know, I said after the last election and the announcement of the cabinet that the position that I was most excited about was the appointment of Angie Motsepe as Minister of Defence, because it guaranteed that South Africa could never have a military coup, because she couldn't even run education, so she's hardly likely to whip the military into shape. But before we go on to the exit of the ANC, what did you make of the general chief of the Defence Force going and pledging allegiance to Iran recently?
No, I suspected that the general was sent by Ramaphosa to collect some dirty money. That's my honest suspicion.
Right.
I have no evidence about it. But I know that the ANC has a dirty relationship with Iran. By the way, the ANC has held meetings with delegations from Iran. And we have seen the pictures that they've taken in Lutula House. And after those meetings, by the way, suddenly the ANC can pay salaries. You know, the ANC had been bankrupt before that. So suddenly they have a meeting with a delegation from Iran. The ANC can now pay salaries. So my suspicion is that this chap was sent to collect dirty money. Because he's a general, his plane is not going to be searched. No one can search the aeroplane of a general.
Yeah.
So this guy can transport illegal US dollars. No one will find that. Can the South African government transport illegal US dollars? Definitely. US dollars were found in Ramaphosa's couch. Yeah. Where did they come from? I think they came via such arrangements. So my strong suspicion is that this guy was there to collect dirty money. Ramaphosa knew about it. There is absolutely no way the chief of the army can travel and meet another chief of the army of another country without the president knowing. Remember, the president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. What if this guy was going to collude with Iran to stage a coup? And you say you are a president, you don't know. It means you are a useless president. There is absolutely no president who is not useless, who would allow a general to travel outside the borders of his state. Even if the general had gone to Swaziland, as the president, you are the first to know before he goes. And you need to know what is he going to do. So this nonsense that Ramaphosa did not know what the general was going to Iran is absolute nonsense. Ramaphosa is actually insulting us again. He knew what where this guy was going. He also knew what this guy was going to do. But this chap is just an innocent fellow who doesn't understand politics. When he gets there, he forgets what he was sent to do. And he starts saying things because the chap has no head. Yeah. It's as basic as that. I mean, that's the thing about incompetence. Incompetence is innocent.
Yeah, and the president was all over Andrew Whitfield when he took a trip overseas, and he was quick to fire him, and now he accuses the general of the same thing. But
I mean, here is the thing about Ramaphosa. Ramaphosa is not a leader. In this whole thing called GNU, Ramaphosa has not risen above the fray. He is extremely partisan in defense of criminals. So when he fired the deputy minister from the DA, who committed no crime, by the way, I knew that he is doing this because this fellow is in the business of protecting criminals. He is not in the business of leading. If there is anyone in South Africa who thinks that Ramaphosa is still interested in leading this country, that person lives in some cloud. They need to come down to reality. Ramaphosa is not in the business of leading South Africa. He is in the business of protecting criminals from the ANC. Full stop.
Let's go back to the political landscape, and we've got local government elections a year from now. We've got the ANC, as you predict, to be below 20%, but it doesn't look obvious that anybody is stepping in to grab those votes necessarily. They're going to go somewhere. If the ANC does fall by 20% from 40 to 20, the votes go somewhere.
Yes, they will go somewhere. That's one, and they will return to that. Where is this somewhere? But here is my prediction. Next year's local government elections will see the lowest voter turnout in history. South Africans no longer believe in the power of the vote. So you will have millions and millions of South Africans who are eligible to vote, not going to vote. I encourage them to go and vote, because it's important for us to use the power of the vote to effect change. I will vote myself, but I know that South Africans have given up when it comes to the power of the vote. But those who will vote will constitute governments. And that's what those who will not vote must know. If you don't go to vote, you would have voted even if you don't go. There will be a government wherever you live. So if you don't want to have a government that you don't like, go and vote for the government that you like. That's how democracy works. Then where will the votes go? My prediction is this, is that you will have a big chunk of traditionally ANC voters in KwaZulu-Natal going to MK. It's very clear that MK is the fastest growing party in KwaZulu-Natal and also in South Africa. So the MK is going to get a lot of those votes that would go to the ANC. And the rest will go to smaller parties. The DA will get something. But, I mean, I saw the poll that the DA is punting. I mean, even Helen Zille has blasted it, by the way. It's absolute nonsense that they're just promoting themselves. The DA is not going to replace the ANC. So I think you will have smaller parties getting something. But the biggest winner in this thing will be the MK party. The EFF will go. The EFF, by the way, when it comes to local government elections, doesn't do that well because the councillors of the EFF generally are considered in South Africa as hooligans. Communities don't trust them. And by the way, I agree with communities. I mean, if I imagine my neighborhood being run by the EFF, I just cannot imagine the EFF taking my bin every Wednesday. I mean, these chaps can't run anything. They're just a bunch of hooligans. So I think the votes will, in the main, go to MK. Not because the MK can govern, by the way. I mean, we know what happens when MK governs. Remember, the president of MK is Jacob Zuma. Jacob Zuma was once president of South Africa. What did he do? He and his Gupta friends, they captured the state, they stole money. So I am very worried for the people of KwaZulu-Natal to be under the governments of the MK in different municipalities. So I think that's where the voters will go. But the lowest voter turnout, that's my prediction.
Prince, do you see MK outdoing their 15% that they got in the national election? And I know local government's slightly different animal, but in total, do you see them doing better than that 15%? Considering they're coming off a zero base when it comes to the local government.
I think that in next year's elections, local government, they will actually not grow dramatically. They will stay more or less where they are, maybe reaching 20%. I think that's where they will go. But if Zuma is still alive, and I've said this before, in 2029, they will grow dramatically. They are likely to hit 23-25% in 2029, and the ANC will come down below 20%. That's where I think the trends are going. The DA will struggle to cross the 25% mark, but they will grow marginally. The ANC and the DA will still be able to constitute a coalition government, but it will be a slim majority in the lower 50s. And of course, assisted by other smaller parties. So that's where I think we are going in the short term. In the long term, there will have to be one party that will emerge as a majority, but that will happen after a minimum of 15 years. It's not going to happen in the next 5. It's not going to happen in the next 10 years. A minimum of 15 years. And I cannot tell you today which party that will be. It could be a totally new party.
Yeah. Now, with this dramatic, almost collapse in real time of the ANC, we're seeing it sort of collapsing on many fronts. Does this not put, we've spoken many times about the imminent death of the government of national unity, but, obviously one of probably the biggest threats to the government of national unity is the fact that eventually you just can't stay. There's, it's such a bad relationship. There's so much potential brand damage by staying in the government of national unity. And now with the ANC seemingly got their looting boots on, do you not see the fact that some of these parties in the GNU might start be getting a little bit nervous that, by staying here, we're hurting ourselves?
Here's the thing. Forget Gauteng, Mackenzie, and the other smaller parties in the GNU. The GNU is a coalition government between the ANC and the DA, full stop. The ANC has been trying to bring as many more smaller parties because they want to process the DA out. But here's the thing, without the DA and the ANC, there's no government of national unity in South Africa. That's the reality. But there's something interesting. both the ANC and the DA are in this thing to destroy each other, and they hate each other. So every day they are working to discredit the other. Now, that's one. Number two, none of them wants to be seen to be the one that took a decision either to withdraw or to kick the other out. So the ANC does not want to stand at a press conference and say, we have kicked out the DA from the government of national unity. If they did that, they know they'll be finished. Because the majority of South Africans, by the way, believe that this GNU, rickety as it is, it's the best thing under the circumstances. So the ANC is aware of it, that if they were to take a decision and say we are kicking the DA out of it, the ANC itself will be finished, totally finished. They would get 5%. South Africans would reject them even next year. So they won't do it. Even the DA, by the way, they don't. At some point, they want to pull out. But they know that they must not be seen to be the ones who convene a press conference and say, we have decided to pull out of it. They know there would be a serious backlash from their own constituency and from South Africans in general. So they will stay in this thing, even though they don't like it, both of them. The other smaller parties, they won't withdraw because their withdrawal would mean nothing. It would mean that Gauteng Mackenzie is no longer chauffeur-driven. It's just an ordinary failure. So that's where we are. But you are right. At some point, this GNU will collapse. This GNU will not finish 5 years. Mark my words. You know when it will collapse? The day Cyril Ramaphosa is booted out as the president of the ANC. And that will happen at the end of 2027. Remember, there will be an elective conference. There will be a new leader, either Paul Mashatile or Fikile Mbalula. And that new leader, by the way, will rise on an anti-Ramaphosa ticket. You can already hear that is the build-up to that campaign. That's how the ANC operates. And the ANC president is weakest in his second term. Number one. Number two, the guy who rises to replace a sitting president in the ANC rises on an anti-incumbency ticket. That is going to happen to Ramaphosa. Number three, and this is the last point, an ANC president who has been removed in an elective conference is never allowed to finish his term as president of the state. Even Thabo Mbeki, who was very powerful, was removed. Even Jacob Zuma, who controlled the criminal network of the ANC, was removed. Cyril Ramaphosa, I've said this before, is the weakest president of the ANC after 1994. He will be, by the way, he won't even be removed. The guy will run. He will run after the conference. The guy will, December, he will tell us, I'm no longer president of South Africa, because he will know his own fate. When that happens, that's the end of the GNU. Because the political risk will be too big for parties like the DA. If Paul Mashatile is the president of the ANC, elected president of the ANC in 2027, the DA cannot be seen to be defending a Paul Mashatile. They can't. They will have to pull out. So we must prepare ourselves for political chaos in December 2027. And that chaos is going to destabilize South Africa politically. We need to ready ourselves as a country. How are we going to deal with that chaos? And that, by the way, will not be the chaos of the DA or Gauteng Mackenzie's part. It will be the chaos of the ANC. The ANC is a cancer. It infects our society and our state.
What do you think of the idea, firstly, which has been mentioned many times, of Patrice Motsepe, an outsider candidate? You know, because one gets the idea that you won't have an elective conference with Fikile versus Mashatile. They're probably going to get together on one ticket with after, you know, Fikile loses that when it becomes clear and it becomes Mashatile as number two. That's the way it's looking to me. But who's going to run against them? And what do you make of the idea of a Patrice Motsepe and some kind of grand bargain for a continued coalition with the DA that follows?
Look, Patrice Motsepe wants to be South Africa's president, full stop. I know it. He's been working on this thing for a long time. sponsoring churches, traditional leaders. That's what he wants. And when I got wind of it, by the way, years ago, I whispered into the ears of those who could possibly be close to him that he will be making the biggest mistake of his life if he thinks that he will be president of South Africa via the ANC. And it looks like his advisors actually have been blind spotted. They did not understand. The ANC has lost too much credibility that anyone who comes from outside and they think that they can rescue the party, they are actually injuring themselves politically. So it's like a stinking party. If you go there, you will also stink. So Patrice Motsepe, if he wants to be president, and I know he wants to, he would do well to start his own party because he has the money and he can set up his own thing and he will stand a chance. But if he goes via the ANC, let me tell you, it's not going to work. It's not going to work because of two things. Number one, the gatekeepers in the ANC will never allow him even to stand. I mean, I had Fikile the other day, was at some funeral in Balul, saying that you can't buy the ANC. People are talking about Motsepe. They have already begun internally to mobilize against the entry of Motsepe. So he won't even enter the contest. Two, he won't do well because he does not control ANC branches. If you want to win in the ANC, you need to control ANC branches. You need to know how to work the ANC branches, including buying them. By the way, buying has the money, he could buy them because the ANC now, it's actually an auction. So the guy with loads of money in his bag, he gets it. So I don't see Patrice Motsepe making it. The question is, who will stand against Fikile and Paul? Your prediction is that they will strike a deal. I think you are right. At the end of the day, they will probably strike a deal that Fikile must be deputy. At this stage, it's very difficult to see who else would stand against them. My sense is that Panyaza Lesufi wants something very serious in that arrangement. Most probably, if they strike a deal, they will make him Secretary General so that they prepare him to be deputy president or president in the next election. So it's at the moment, I think that the real front runners is Mbalula and Paul. But you know what? A day is a long time in politics. Anything can change.
Yeah. What do you think if you take Panyaza Lesufi right now? He's running a minority government in Gauteng. The original sort of appeal of his faux revolutionary talk seems to have given way to his lack of delivery. He's not as popular as he was a year ago. And then add on top of that a poor performance at local government election because all of the metros in Gauteng have been absolutely mishandled badly since the national election. So it's not like he wants to fix up the cities. Now, he after the local government election, will his stocks not be weakened by the bad local government electoral showing in Gauteng?
Look, Mike, I see that you are like my colleagues in the political analysis. You've drunk this Kool-Aid. that tells you that Panyaza Lesufi at some point was popular. Popular where? Show me the results of this fellow's popularity. Yeah. This chap, he makes a lot of noise. Yeah, he's just
he presided over a bigger decline than Ramaphosa did nationally.
This guy was never popular anywhere. He believes in his head that he's popular. What has he won where for the ANC? Absolutely nothing. If you look at his performance, you can see the guy, by the way, has been presiding over a very steep decline politically of the party. And even the performance of his ANC in Gauteng compared to other provinces, by the way, he has experienced the sharpest decline. So he's actually not popular anywhere. He's not popular in the party. He's not popular in Gauteng. But for some reason, because the chair, by the way, has mastered the art of jumping from one media platform to another, he has come to believe, like my colleagues, political analysts who have drunk a lot of Kool-Aid, that he is popular. No. You're completely wrong. He's not popular. So whenever he decides to stand for whatever position in the ANC, by the way, if he gets that position, he will be infecting the ANC even more. The guy actually is a loser. So if the ANC thought clearly, that is the guy you don't want anywhere near a position of the ANC, looking at his performance.
Yeah, and you'll know he's getting very desperate when he finally accepts my invitation to go on the State of the Nation. But he's not that desperate yet.
They will come. I'm telling you, they will come.
Yeah, but it'll have to be ahead of the election. Let's look across to the Democratic Alliance. Clearly, at this point, number 2, they also have an elective conference coming up. If we don't understand the tactics of the ANC, I understand the tactics of the DA even less. Do you see anything changing there, or common sense prevailing, or anything that will make them change what they're doing, other than remaining a bit player in the country?
Look, I think I have a sense of the tactics of the DA, and I rely on the fact that I've read a lot of books on strategy and techniques. I mean, from Sun Tzu to Kissinger to, every book you can think about political strategy I've read. So I have a bit of a sense. Here is the fundamental problem of the DA. And let's just state it the way it is. You will not understand why the DA is in its current dilemma without understanding why the DA was formed and how the DA was formed. That should be the starting point. The DA was formed by white South Africans who wanted political insurance against a rising black government. That's the core of it. And people don't want to say this, but it's true. After they formed the DA, Tony Leon told us that the DA is a fight back project. The campaign was clear, fight back against black people. Simple. Fast forward, at some point they decide, you see, our fight back strategy and the fact that our project is about the defense of white interests, people can now see through it. What must we do in order to confuse people? They said, let's recruit young blacks who are going to come into our party as researchers, and we must mold them into what we want them to become. And then they went around selecting one here, the other there. And then at some point they said, now we have molded some of them. Let's promote them into strategic positions, but we must run them like puppets. But the problem is this. So that's how Musi becomes leader of the party. That's how people like Lindiwe, by the way, became leaders of caucus of the DA in parliament. But the problem is this. If you are placed in a position of leadership, you don't want to feel like you are fake. At some point, you want to feel that you are leading. And when these fellows who were placed in those positions began to feel that they were leading and behaved as if they were leading, the wire pullers said, that's the door. You came through that door, out of that door. Why? Because the fundamental and historical problem of the white minority in South Africa has been this. How does a minority control a majority? This is the question the DA has been grappling with. That how does a white minority control a black majority? And the answer was, we'll control them through people who are going to recruit. If the DA is still pursuing this question, the DA will never be the government of South Africa. They need to go back to the drawing room and say, That should not be the question. The different question we must ask is this: how best can South Africa be governed? And if that is the question, the formula is not complicated. The formula is this: South Africa cannot be governed properly if it does not involve black people and white people together. Let me tell you, you can try whatever formula. You can scream black, you can scream white if you like. No other formula will work for South Africa. And I've read South Africa's history. I can tell you, even the English and the Afrikaners, after butchering each other in the Anglo-Boer War, they came to that conclusion that, guys, we have butchered each other for many years. The only way that we can govern this thing is if we do it together. We are exactly at that point as a country. The only way that we can do this thing properly is if we do it together, black and white. But white people must never think through the DA that they will manipulate black people. Even black people must never think that they will manipulate white people. We need to see each other as equals and sit around the table, have rational discussions that will take our country in the right direction. The DA intellectually and psychologically is not in that space. That is their biggest problem. Then there is a tactic they have adopted of late, and I can see what this whole thing is about. It's to deploy Helen to Johannesburg. And I have endorsed Helen, by the way. And by the way, I don't mince my words. I have endorsed Helen Zille to be mayor of Johannesburg. And it's not like my voice counts. I endorsed Helen because the ANC has destroyed Johannesburg. The Johannesburg used to be the pride of Africa. The ANC has ravished it. It needs to be rescued. And when I look around, I just cannot see anybody who's going to do that. Helen, as a person, she has the capacity to run a city. She has done that in Cape Town. She has run the Western Cape. She didn't ravage the Western Cape. She didn't ravage Cape Town as a city. By the way, she has done a better job than the ANC, even in terms of providing services to the poor. So if you went to Khalicha and Kwalanga, by the way, the people of Kwalanga have never gone without water. The black people who live in Sandton today under the ANC mayor, they don't have water. So if you are rational, you are black or you are white, who do you vote for? A Dada Morero or a Helen Zille? Even if you woke me up at 12 o'clock midnight, I would say Helen be mayor of Johannesburg, because at least Helen can give the black people who live in Johannesburg, in Soweto, in Sandton, water. But that doesn't mean that I am blind to the weakness of the DA. I'm fully alive, as I've explained to you.
Yeah. Prince, some of the, as we got to the election and post the election, the ANC put through some very controversial, wrote into our laws, some very controversial laws. Bella, expropriation without compensation, national health insurance. There seems to be, in the case of expropriation, no expropriation taking place. NHI seems to be stillborn, and Bella's creating problems. Do you think that these acts are ever going to take root? Do you think anything will happen, or what do you think happens with these really sort of big laws that came in that were very controversial?
You know, I followed the discussion, and I had my colleagues, political scientists, political analysts making a lot of noise about them. And I said, what kind of intoxicants will take it? Because here is the thing. The ANC is incapable of implementing anything. It doesn't have a record of implementing anything. At some point, there was noise about a national development plan. Right? Everybody was running around the national development plan. Where has it been implemented? Show me and say, there it was implemented. The ANC cannot implement it. These fellows, they are so incompetent that anybody who takes them seriously when they meet, whether in parliament or in Nasrec, and make some pronouncement, anybody who takes them seriously, you must not take that person who takes the ANC serious. These chaps cannot implement anything. So the NHI, it's not going to happen in South Africa. Let me tell you. Bella, it's not going to happen in South Africa. In any case, these fellows are exiting power. The longest they could be in power, it's give or take 8 years from now or so. And by the way, not even as a governing party, as a component of a coalition government. So don't worry about these laws. There is not a single farm that will be expropriated without compensation. By the way, the ANC, when they were still a proper government, they did actually, through a land restitution program, they did buy a few farms here and there across the country, by the way. Just go and look at what happened to those farms. They are lying fallow as we speak. So the ANC is incapable of implementing anything. If you are afraid of the ANC, you are scared of a dead lion. The lion is dead. So I'm not worried about these things because I know that won't happen.
Although you're leaving the loaded gun, you've been kicked out of your house, but you're leaving the loaded gun in the cupboard.
But the gun can't shoot itself.
Yeah, but I'm saying somebody else is going to take over that house and maybe they can shoot it.
No, I mean, if a priest comes there who believes in the Lord, you get in there and it's not going to shoot anybody.
Yes.
You will make sure this thing is managed properly and is taken out of their house. And I hope that's where we're going to get as a country. There is a lot of damage repair that will need to be done after the ANC. I mean, the ANC, the way they have destroyed our country is shocking. Hopefully we'll have a group of responsible leaders who are going to take over and make sure that they work on repairing the damage without destroying our country further. But that is hope, as I say. But at this stage, nobody must take the ANC seriously when they say they're going to implement anything. They are useless.
But hope isn't a great. You're a strategist, and what do they say? Hope isn't a strategy.
Yeah, it's true. But here's the thing, and you're quite right. And I've studied enough of world history to know that if you don't plan the trajectory of your society and your country will drift unguided, and it will fall apart. Even the post-1994 regime was actually planned. The meetings began in London. They went to Lusaka. They eventually ended up in Kempton Park. My worry today is this. I am not aware, maybe I'm ignorant, I'm not aware of serious groups of the elite who are meeting and substantively working on a plan to rescue South Africa. And that is the responsibility of the elite. Make no mistake. Show me one society anywhere in the world that is not led by the elites. A society that is not led by the educated. Even the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia was a revolution of the elite. Lenin was the most educated among the Bolsheviks, the most well-read. So I am worried that the elites, for some reason, have relinquished the power that they have to plan the trajectory of their own society. I hope they wake up and do it as soon as possible, because if they don't, let me tell you what's going to happen. The so-called masses will take over. And when they take over, let me tell you, this whole thing will be up in smoke.
Yeah, it's hard to see who would convene such a gathering of elites. I mean, because it's not, to finish off where we started, this is not going to be achieved through a national dialogue.
No.
It would be something that happens in a smoke-filled room where people representing business, civil society, even political elites gets together saying, guys, we can't go over the cliff because we all go over together.
Yes, you don't need a national dialogue for that. By the way, if you convene, I mean, I saw a chap there at the national dialogue who behaved like a madman. I mean, I saw it. It was embarrassing. Another chap ran to the stage and started insulting others. That's not how you plan the trajectory of a society and a country. If you have a jamboree like that, you will have madmen who will take over the stage. So it has to be done by sober South Africans who have the interests of our country at heart. They don't need to announce it, by the way. And eventually, whatever they plan to do, it needs to be processed democratically so that it don't undermine our democratic institutions. And if they lose, they must accept that they tried and lost. If they win, the better. That's how societies operate. Let me give you lived in the UK for the longest time. Just go and study how the three musketeers in the UK decided, three of them, Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, and Alistair Campbell. They decided, guys, we want to redirect UK politics. We are going to use our party, which was Labour. And it was a useless party, dismissed as the socialist party. There was a clause, I think clause 3. They said, we will engineer a process to amend it. We'll rebrand this thing. But at the end of the day, we will take over power and redirect this thing. 3 guys. Eventually they did. They took it. That's how societies work. And there was a democracy. People voted. That's how it works. So I hope that somewhere there will be patriotic South Africans who will understand that this thing is too precious to be left to the wind.
Yeah. Well, the only way it's going to start is if some of those people are listening to us. Because
Hopefully.
It's going to take some courage, because you're going to be fighting against some ingrained interests that won't want things to change.
Look, here's the thing, my guy. There's an important point as we conclude. You need to study Lee Kuan Yew, how he did it. Now we're going to Asia. How he did it in Singapore. There were 6 when they did it with his friends in Singapore. 6 of them. In the UK, there were 3. They knew from the get-go that this is going to be a fight, that there will be interest out there. By the way, the communists in Singapore, they even went underground. They waged a rebellion. But these guys were serious about the business of rescuing their society and building a modern city-state. They said, guys, we are going to take on anyone who is going to use illegal means to disrupt our project. Even us, we must never do anything that is illegal. So the elites, if they do what I suggest should be done, must never break the law. But they must know it's not going to be a walk in the park. The Cat Matlalas of this world, the criminals, will be there to frustrate whatever project that is meant to rescue South Africa. So there must be no doubt about it. It's going to be a fight.
And it's not another political party. It's actually a concerted effort.
In the end, it will be through a political party. Even Lee Kuan Yew, by the way, they had to form a party. Tony Blair and they had to use Labour. Trump in the US, by the way, had to use the Republican Party. Because that's how democracies are organized through political parties. But you need a group of proper South Africans who have the interests of our country at heart, who are going, if they use a political party, so be it. But it must be in the interest of our country.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you see, State of the Nation even has the solution, thanks to Prince. And it is a very, very serious situation. The country is drifting in the wrong direction. Nobody at the helm. We don't know which direction the wind is coming from. We are fighting old wars using the wrong machinery. It's just not working out for anybody. And let's hope that some people are listening to us and that we can be part of the solution and not just talk about it. Prince Mashele, always a pleasure to have you here on the State of the Nation. Let's get 1 million views. Come on, why not? And let's subscribe to the channel, like the video. Let's get it out there. Thank you so much for joining us on the State of the Nation.
Thanks, Mike, for inviting me. I actually don't know why you invite a character like that.
Just trying to pump things up. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again on the State of the Nation. Thank you. Join us at our next State of the Nation breakfast on Thursday, the 4th of September, 2025, at the Tryst in Kramerville, Sandton. Our guests at that event will include Corne Mulder, Musi Maimani, and Cilliers Brim, as we discuss whether South Africa has any leaders at all. To book, visit sona.co.za.